So it's a family affair today. How you doing, people? We've got the electronics out today, so we're doing a little bit of soldering. So we've got the trusty soldering iron out and the solder stand, and Martha here wants to learn a bit of electronics, isn't that right? Yeah. So here we have a FM digital circuit radio. These are pretty good way of starting any electronics. On this one, it's got all the, I'm just going to put a glass on, it's got all the components marked. So you've got your resistors. So we're starting off with this one up here, which is R1. Hopefully you can see that okay. And then we've got all these other components, including a couple of chips, some speakers, some capacitors, some switches, and that's going to make a little radio kit. Let me just show you. So on the back we've got the copper board to solder our legs. We've just got that one resistor in which we're about to solder. I'm going to let Martha have a go at this. So we started with the ball off with looking at the resistors. So here we've got all our different components. So these are known as resistors and a couple of capacitors, and at the end there, that's a diode. So that's a one-way little electronic component which makes things travel in a certain direction. So in here we've got the packet. This is the radio kit that we're building. And that's a digital FM radio. Inside the packet gives you the instructions step by step, so it's a bit like the old school stuff. Good fun. Starting at number 1, we've got a couple of chips pre-programmed up. They're going to be soldered integrated circuit boards, as I say, and we've got some switches, and then we've got a speaker in the box that's going to fit in. So it's going to be fun, and a little antenna and a 9-volt, a 9-volt cable. So the antenna is just a bit of cable. So that's everything we've got in this kit. Pretty cheap, about £15. Oh, sorry, I missed this part. This is your antenna socket. That's going to drop in. It's quite tricky, this bit. I've built these before. There's a few feet to add onto the board. So this is going to assemble on there, like so. It'll go on that side. It'll pop through on this side, drop in line, probably that way, and then we will solder that up and connect everything up and see how we get going. So that's the stage that we're at for the beginning. So what are you doing now? What's that one?
R2.
R2, resistor number 2 going in.
Come on, you have to fit. Just fit. There you go. Oh, you put you in proper.
So what's it like on the other side? You've got your legs sticking through properly. Yep, good stuff. Okay, well, looking for resistor number 3 now, if you don't mind.
Easy peasy. Wait, which one's that one? This one.
Yep.
Come on. I know you want to get out of here. I'm not sure if this one. Oh yeah, it does. Okay, where do I put resistor 3 thingy?
So we'll look on the board, turn it around and decide where you're going.
Yeah, turn it around. It goes here, doesn't it? Not like that.
So you've got the first 3 components mounted, ready to flip over and start a little bit of soldering, which is the next bit of fun. I just generally separate these now and spread the legs a little bit. That just stops them from moving. So then you can bring your soldering iron in. Are you ready? This is the fun part. So we'll see what this iron solders up like. It's a new tip, so it might not be brilliant.
Hello.
So we're going to drop that in there. We're going to just bring a bit of solder in until it melts. I don't want much.
Wait, do you cut the top bit off at the end?
Yeah, I will trim the leg.
That makes sense.
So run a little bit of solder in just like that. Nice and quick. That's one little job. We'll bring it over to this one. So you put the prong of the iron down to the copper board.
Looks so cool.
It's easy enough. Dip a little bit of solder, wait a couple of seconds till it melts. Whoops, you don't ideally want to lift it up like that. We'll try again a little bit better. I just got the tip stuck in the hole there.
The solder bit looks so cool.
So easy enough. A little bit of soldering up, move your iron out, let it run. You don't want a dry joint. A dry joint is when you move the component and the iron before it's fully cooled and it doesn't quite fuse. So that'll be a dry joint there. So that's a dry joint, if you can see that. It hasn't melted, so we just put a bit of extra heat in there. Wait a little bit longer. Sometimes dip a little bit more solder to allow it to flow. There is a component mixed in solder, quite often called flux, and that allows it to melt and stick to the board and run. So that's almost a dry joint, but I just managed to bring that back. So
you need to do that one.
We've got that one. Just do a couple more. This is basic soldering skills using a very fine tip on a pretty basic soldering iron. So something that most radio amateurs should get, and hobbyists. So easy enough. I'm going to get Martha on with a bit of soldering shortly. Now she knows how to do it.
So cool.
So it's just a case of putting the minimum amount of solder in to do the job.
It's like metal.
So you don't have a mess. So that's the first couple of components soldered in.
Is it metal? Because it looks like metal.
Yep, it is metal.
But like not dry yet.
It's more of a tin. So that's how we do it so far. So what are you thinking so far?
I think that the solder thing looks really cool.
Right, so now we're looking at our first. So we've got our first stage in, which is stage 1. We've got stage 2 now. This one says jumper. So I've got a jumper on. Have you got a jumper on?
No.
Right, let's get a bit of wire. A wire is generally a jumper, or it's usually a connecting point. So we're looking for a jumper on this kit now. Looking for the point where the jumper goes. So on there, let's have a quick scan around. Where can we see it?
I can't see it.
I can't see it. We'll find it.
What does it look like?
So we'll have to have a look and find out exactly where it goes. It says J1, jumper 1. So we're looking for it. There it is. Can you see J1? I can see it. It's under the intricated circuit, the chip.
That makes sense.
There it is, J1. So that's our jumper point, okay? So to make things complicated or uncomplicated, this is what we're going to use. It's just a piece of wire, same as the resistor leg or the diode leg. And then we're just going to pull a piece out, snip it to size, and let Martha do that.
How do you hold this thing?
Yep, good point. So get it in your fingers, get it close to the paper so if it drops on the cardboard and then you don't lose it. Give it a quick snip. That's it, so you're on with your jumper.
So
right, so I'll try the long nose pliers and bend that down into a right angle. That's it, good stuff. And then you try to fit it into that gap for J1, remember, so bend the other side down, try to do a U shape. That's it, that'll do, and you're going to fit that to the board. That's going in J1. Yeah, J1 it is. Have you done that?
I need to make it a bit smaller because it wouldn't fit. Done.
Okay, we can solder that one in there. That's J1.
Amazing, because I have shaky hands whenever.
So you don't want to solder this just yet?
I'm not going to solder it.
Okay, so we get the iron in again. Remember, get the nib even down into it. Try not to get it stuck in the hole. Warm it up, the board. Run a bit of solder in. Let it run onto the copper and the leg of the component. Move it away. Let it cool. Bring your iron back in. Warm. Keep your solder close at hand. You can see when it's melting. It don't take long. Plenty to fuse to the leg and the board. There we go. Simple.
How does it not melt the board?
Because you got to be quick. So what do we do now? What stage are we on now?
Stage 3, I think.
Okay, so ceramic capacitors. So ceramic capacitors. So we're going to let's quickly look at these components. We've got number 3 is ceramic capacitors, which is something that's a ceramic capacitor there. So number 4, that's the diode, which is this component here. And then we've got the IC sockets, which we've looked at. They're in the bag. So there's the IC sockets. So then we move down to the main array resistor, which is going to be this antenna socket, I would have thought. And then we move to the LED, which is in the bag, a light emitting diode. We'll look at that in a bit. We've got some switches, some push button switches, a transistor and a voltage regulator. And then we move up to the fitting the electrolytic capacitors, which are these type, these ones here, these ones with the legs on. I'll show you them closer. There they are. So the reason why I'm showing you this, after that we've got the IC chip to fit and then the speaker, is because we can easily work out the rest of the components. So on there we're looking for the ceramic capacitors. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're all the same value. It says here the value on the side, and I'll get Martha to read that value out on the side of there. Do you want to just do that for me? Tell me what that number is on the capacitor. So what's the value of the capacitor? It says a little number on that brown one.
104.
104, good. So we've got it on there, 104. So that's the maximum tolerance of that capacitor, C1 to C7. So we're going to fit them now and solder them in. So all we've got to do, Martha, is find the C1 to C7 on the board. So let's have a look and find out where C1's looking. So I can see C4, C2.
I can find C6 and C9 and
so we're looking for C1. Can we see C1, the starting point?
C3.
Right, okay, but where's C1? So you found C1 yet?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there it is. So that's our starting point, capacitor number 1. Then 2, 3 and 4.
First we'll move to the resistors and finish off the capacitors.
Let's have a look at the resistors then. Okay, so get these resistors put in and then you're going to move it to your capacitors. Okay. We fit in R4.
Come on, come on, come on. In you go. Depends on which way.
Spread your the legs of the capacitor, or the resistor even, that's it. Right, get your next one in, R5.
I felt sorry.
So what's that, is that R5?
Yeah, it's the next one.
Oops.
Here you go, R5. Now spread out your... Is this you?
That's right.
That's you.
Okay, let's get R6 on the go.
Rest.
So, do you remember how we identified these resistors? What tool did we use to do it?
A multimeter.
Okay, well we'll just show everybody how to do that in a second, eh?
Yeah. And in you go. Which one did I do again?
R6 on it.
Yeah.
Right, so I've got a multimeter, let's put it on. So we're looking for a component, R7, which is 22 ohms. So let's drop it right down, we'll put it on 200 ohms range. And you're going to put it on each leg, Martha, for me. And that should read a reading, actually we'll put it on the 2K, go on. Try that, and what have we got? Hold it on, we're looking for 22, it should be 0.22. Hold it still, you're not quite making contact.
Sorry. Let me try.
So quite tricky, just press them components onto the resistor. And we're reading it, and that's 26 just about. I saw it, it flashed up. 25, 26, hold it still, there you go, 25 ohms. So that is, just keep it there. So as you can see, Martha's got a multimeter touching each leg of this resistor. This is how we tested the resistance, so we know which one's which.
Which one's this again?
That was R7, wasn't it?
Yeah, row 7. Where does this go?
What does R stand for?
Resisting something.
Resistor.
Now time to solder it.
So this is your favorite. I like this bit. Is this your favourite bit where you get me to do something? Yeah. So remember, people, warm it up slowly. Bring your nib down. Touch a little bit of solder close to the leg of the component, like that. Keep it on the copper. You don't want to burn the board. The boards are only plastic, they soon melt. So that's why I've put this little fine nib on. That's a little bit trickier to warm. Running a little bit of solder around there and then move it off, and that's another one done. So I'll show you again. You've got to be quite careful when you've got a port or a socket or whatever the technical term is next to one, because you can short circuit it. So you don't want to run the solder too heavy. Keep it light, the minimum amount to do the job. I'm just going to dab a little bit more in there, and that is, whoops, that was pretty poor. hopefully that'll run down. I'm going to trim these legs off in a minute, which means using a pair of snips. So this one's just proved to be a little bit awkward. You don't always get it right, obviously. So this one's been a bit trickier.
Tricky one.
Occasionally you make a bit of a bad job.
Wise.
So that's done it. So just got to be careful I don't get carried away with heat. Like I said, the board can melt quite easy. So that was the worst one I've done so far. Let it cool and add a bit more solder.
Lovely piano in the background.
Yeah, we've got the other one, ELC, creating musical madness as I try to sort this out and don't do that great with it. When you get a bit of excess solder on, you've got these tools here. This is a solder sucker, so I'm going to use this to get rid of that bit of solder that I've got a bit carried away with. I can slide it down the leg like that, in theory, and then I can just suck it out and get rid of it.
Really did anything.
So that's better. I got rid of a little bit of that.
Looks like
Scrape that off.
nothing.
It did work, it's just that I overheated it slightly.
Yes, you did.
So these are the trials and tribulations of trying to make a video. Teach your 9-year-old and do a bit of soldering, so that wasn't the greatest, but yeah. Hopefully that will be okay. So let's see if I can redeem myself on this one. So that were a bit of a poor effort that on my behalf. Sorry, Martha. So now bring the nib in and get a bit more heat on this one. Let it run quicker. So I probably won't quite on target with my iron on the last one. Oh, it could have been a bit of surface contamination. I'll go for that one. So the solder won't stick in. That's my out of jail card used. As you can see, this is going a lot easier.
Hey, this doesn't took so long, has it?
No, it's not taken long, folks.
I'm just saying,
So,
how can it be so
on a wet
long?
day, what better things to do than build yourself an FM digital radio kit?
I mean, how can it take so long? It only has 16 steps.
Well, you know, it's the steps that count, isn't it, really? So 16 mighty steps of soldering. So a bit more than 16 steps because each component has got 2 legs. So how many steps is that if there's 2 legs on each component? Can you tell me that one?
That's actually a tricky one.
It is, isn't it?
Yes.
So if you've got 16 legs and you've got to do it twice, how many steps?
Wouldn't that be 2 times 16?
Which is?
Wait, one second. Isn't it 32?
That's correct, 32 steps. So yeah, we're doing okay anyway with however many steps there are. So quite a fairly pleasant little job to do. And I think that's all them soldered up so far. So I'm just going to trim a few of these up now and make life a bit neater. Right, so that's an easy job. You just use a pair of these little side cutters here and get down as close as you can. Snip off the legs like that. I'll let Martha have a go. Go on, try it if you like.
What am I doing?
You're just snipping it off. I'll show you again.
All of them?
So right down on the bottom and snip. There you go. Your turn.
With this one?
Yeah.
No, it's some on it.
Yeah, that's a bit of a leg.
Leg. You say that all calmly and I'm just like, a leg.
Make it look hard work.
Because it is hard work when you
Right, get the next one done.
It's
Come
so
on.
easy.
It's so easy.
It was hard at first. Oh, thanks. You're already done for me. Do I get to do them all?
Yep.
Ah. I have to use 2 hands.
So that's it so far, trimmed up. First stages of the soldering.
Which step are we on now?
And that's all the resistors fitted. So we're going to move to the next stage, which is fitting capacitors 1 to 7, I think. So we'll have a look
Haven't
at
we
that.
already done the first one?
No, we haven't done any capacitors yet. We've just done resistors. So we've done the resistors, the jumper, now we're on the ceramic capacitors C1 to C7.
Didn't see one.
Yep, we want C1. We already found that one, so let's stick C1 in and
Where's
get
it
going
going?
with the capacitors, the
Where's it
ceramic
going?
ones.
Something to do with a
You what?
I thought that was the one.
Did you?
Yeah.
That's what. And what's R? What is R?
Forgot.
You forgot?
Yeah, I forgot.
Is it R? Do you know what R is?
resistant. Get on. Come on. Maybe if I move these guys out. Yeah, that's better. Now what am I doing? The third one.
C7, your last capacitor, and then you've fitted them to the board. Some of them, you said to me, are a little bit wonky, so I'll show you how to straighten them up in a second.
This one's wonky. What?
So yeah, we've got the capacitors in. She's managed to remember to move the legs so that they stay in position. A couple of these caps are a little bit slightly wonky on the board. Wonky donkey. So like that one there. So what we do, we just get a pair of long nose pliers, and it's easier to do it that way up. And then all you do is you just pull it tight. So give it a little pull like that on each leg. Pull that, and then let's have a look at that one now. That one will now mount flush. Perfect.
Flush.
So that's straightened that one up just by pulling it. I'll do it again on this one. That leg's sticking up a little bit. Just grab your long nose pliers, give it a little pull through, and then that will put that flat on the board too. So I've got two flat ones to solder in. So they're all mounted nicely, ready to put a bit of solder on the underside of the board.
Yay.
So let's see if we can do a little bit better with these than last time.
I want to remember last time.
Yep, it's all part of the fun. So get your nib down there, get some heat into the component. Are you watching, Marv? This is the good bit. You like this bit. So
I like the smoke, it looks nice.
yeah, melt the minimum amount of solder required for the job. This nib actually might not have been the best choice. It might have been better with a slightly flatter tip of the soldering iron.
Works really good with some other ones.
Yep, that wasn't bad.
Looks like silver.
It's okay.
You could make
nicely.
a robot if you get like a bunch of that solder thing.
I could make a what?
A robot model.
Maybe.
Yeah, if you made it out of solder. Because you have a lot. But you'd
That's
need
very true.
loads more. You'd need loads more. Because it only gives you small amounts.
Well, some legs tune up better than others. Probably the actual component slightly dirty, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe.
The leg, you know.
Because they've had it for like a couple of years.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So as you can see, folks, the soldering up really easy. Once you get your heat in there, I'm just lowering the angle slightly of the iron just to put a little bit more heat, because this tip is particularly fine.
You have to do that one.
Slightly lowering angle gives me a bit better.
Make sure you do all 4 of the other ones.
Don't you worry, gives me a little better heat input, which is now making the job much quicker, as you can see. Practice makes perfect.
You've practiced for ages.
Not today, I haven't.
You're just good at it.
Well, I want on that particular one, but usually not bad. So here we go, folks, just about completed. Thanks for following this kit. We're going to obviously finish it all off, and then hopefully at the end of it we'll get it working, and Martha's components will have been correctly chosen.
Imagine if someone was watching this at the same time as doing it.
We're going to look for next then.
A diode.
So this is it, it's D1, diode number 1, but it says D2. It's confusing, isn't it? On the board it says D1, right there, D1. I've tried to make this a bit bigger, so on this particular image you can just see that silver mark on the leg. That's telling us that is matching the silver mark on the drawing, the cathode side. So you can see the cathode's marked, so that's how we're going to fit this diode, with that one on that side lining up with the board. So there it is, marked up, D1, with the leg coloured in white. See sockets? So these are there. There's 2. There's IC1 and IC2. It says 14P, 8P, that means 14 pin and 8 pin. There's the pins, and they're just going to drop into this particular point on the board there, and that one just there. and then we're going to solder it on the underside. So it does say watch the notch, or attenzione le nocche. So what is the notch? So that is the notch. Hang on a sec, can you see it? Just at the top. Let me show you with this this little bit of solder. There's the notch. That lines up with the notch. The notch. So that's how they drop in. This bit's quite tricky to solder on the underside. So you got to be careful, because obviously these little pins that are sticking through are very small, and you don't want to short circuit anything with the solder bridging across the copper tracks. So I'm just going to get that bit done, and then that's that bit finished. So like I said, a little bit of care is needed when you're doing this part. So I'm just taking my time and using the minimum amount of solder, because I don't want any short circuits.
It's lunchtime.
Yep, we're going to finish off our lunch shortly, take a little break and complete it in a second. So that's pretty nicely mounted there. Well, hopefully. I believe so. So, not too bad, all considering. There?
The speaker.
Okay. So we've got the speaker on. We used a couple of bolts that come with the kit. Go straight through the board. And there's the other one. There's it right there. Both. You can see them both there. See the speaker behind the board on the solder side. A couple of plastic bushes or spacers, locking nut, washer. And now we're just going to connect these up with these jumpers, which are in the pack. So I'll solder them on. I'll probably just use one, cut it in half. That'll probably be sufficient. Actually changed my mind. I'm actually going to use some long nose pliers. Use this bit of a jumper. I'm just going to bend it up into a little tick, or a little bend back, and then I can hook that through the eyelet of the speaker, and from there I should be able to double that back and then nip it up. And then it's going to be quite easy to solder. So that's one. It does, doesn't it? I'm going to do both of them. Get them prepared. So this is all my components just about used up actually. We're nearly there now. So I hope you've enjoyed watching and staying with this video. A little bit of a relaxing electronics mess around video.
All we've got left is 4 different things.
That's correct. So we're just going to solder this bit up now, and nearly finished.
Cool.
So yeah, this is Master's favourite bit. The bit where Dad does the soldering. Alright?
Yeah.
Obviously that were a lot easier to do than these fiddly components we've had to do. Yeah. We've got the antenna system I put on yet, which is quite tricky. So that's that bit soldered up. I'm just going to cut them down now and place them to these 2 pins, a positive and a negative, as seen on the drawing. So remember, watch the polarity. Right, so that's the jumper's connected, positive and negative. So let's have a look at this now then. So now we've got this power cable going in to these 2 points on the board there. So again, 9 volt, watch the polarity. No, I didn't say that, that's from last time. So we've got a red and we've got a black wire. So black to the top, red to the bottom on the positive, which is the usual carry on. But you didn't know it was positive and negative looking at the board, because it doesn't tell you. Oh yeah, it does, you can just see it there, faintly. So yep, positive and negative connection. And then we're going to connect up this housing unit for the battery, which is that holds the battery. You'll see it in a minute. And then we've got the last stage, which is putting the FM tuner on. That's the tricky part. Ooh. And once we've done that, we're going to connect the battery up and see if it works. So I'm just going to tin these wires, put a bit of solder on them pretty much. Makes it a bit easier, makes it stick quicker to the right board, what I'm trying to do. So remember, I need to know the correct one. So we've got a positive on the bottom and we've got a negative on the top. That's what we're going to do. So what I'll probably do is I'll probably just put a little bit of solder on this board first, like that. That helps me attach my wires. So now I've not actually, I probably won't need the solder, because I've got solder on the wire, solder on the board, so I can literally apply a bit of heat. That should melt, and hopefully if I get it close enough it'll fuse together with the right amount of heat. There you go, that's one. Just waited a second to let it cool. You can see how it changed shape. It goes from a molten liquid material to solid. Well, not really a material, more of a, obviously a diluted tin and lead and all the rest of it what makes solder up. So this one's not kind of playing as good as the last one. So when it gets like that, the best bet, if you get a bit of a mess, is add a bit of fresh solder. You can always use the desoldering tool, remember, which I'll get out again just to show you where I've put it. The desoldering tool is hiding. There it is. So we'll just use this just for the sake of it. I don't really need it, but I'm going to demonstrate it. And that just gets rid of what you want, any excess solder. So start that again, because that obviously wasn't the tidiest job. Just bring that up so you can see it. And this is the last leg, and the camera's playing up of course now. Last leg of the video. So let's try that again, that's a little bit better. Bring this back in now, so we've got plenty of solder on there. Warm that one up, and then hopefully that will sink into the liquid pool of solder. It's not the greatest solder, this stuff, I'll be honest. Proving to be tricky, this one. Makes it fun. Really get it. Yep, in the end. That was a bit of a mish, but it was fun though. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that.
I need it back.
So yeah, the finishing stages where we've got to put this little bolt in.
Can you open this up?
Yeah, I can open that up. I'll open that up, you get the nut on.
Is it on?
Nearly.
Is it on now?
Not quite. So we managed to do that. We've got the screw in the right way around. That's going to connect to the battery, and that's going to power up, and that's going to have a 9-volt cell or battery just connected up to that. So this is the worst part of the job, which is the last part. It's the antenna part, which is known as the FM tuner plus antenna. So in this bit it's got a pre-programmed board and a chip, and I've got to line this one up with that bit, which is a bit tricky. So that's going to go on just like that. So you've got to connect all these poles up, as you can see, from underneath. So this is the worst bit of the soldering job, I'd say. Line that up and solder that up. So that's what I'm going to do now, and that will be the final stage before we test it to see whether or not Martha's first electronic project works. So will it work?
I don't know.
Right, so this is the critically tricky bit, in my opinion. So I've got to make sure I get that in line, and I don't want to make a mess of this. So I'm going to start off. Well, actually, what I'm going to do is, now I've found the location, I'm going to put a bit of solder on here, like last time. Not too much. Just to try and get a bit of a start. So this is where the care comes in. So if you just prep it up, then you probably have more chance of success. Now, I'm not putting too much heat on this solder. I don't really want it to melt too much at this stage. So thanks for watching and sticking with us throughout this video.
You said that the third time now.
Yeah, it's the third time, we've got to be grateful. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and like I said originally, the kit cost £15, so not too bad. I'm going to do the same on these pins. I'm going to put a bit of solder, oops, just bring it a bit nearer for you, on these pins now. do the same little mission.
And then
just pre-tin them.
Yep. Then we only have to attach the tinner bit, and then we're done.
That's correct.
Or do we need a battery in it? Yes, we'll need a battery.
We will need a 9-volt battery.
What type of battery is that?
Or cell, a PP3. So just minimum amount going on this FM receiver and antenna. So there's a little decoding unit in it, and quite a good little kit actually, if it works. I've built one up with a few students in the past, so.
Did it work?
It worked.
Did it work when you built it up?
But you're my favourite student. Right, so that's all soldered, ready to attempt. So I've just got a bit of weight on the top of this with my finger. I'm going to try attempt to warm up that first one. That's sunk on nice. You can see it drop down. So right, again with that. So with a bit of luck, we've got, yeah, that dropped in nice as well. So that's the first starting point's going well. Let's spin it around and see if we can do it at the back. So obviously soldering is just a hobby of mine. I'm not an electronics expert. Just play around, having a bit of fun in between QSOs. So yeah, manipulate that iron, that fused in nice. Just going to get a bit more on there. I'm not so sure about that side. You can see the solder running there, perfect. So I'm well happy with that. That's fixed pretty nice there. So all I've got to do now is get in there with these terminals, which this is the tricky part, I'll be honest. It's so small.
I was putting down.
It's all tricky. Hopefully I've not got a short there, just scrape that off. So by pre-soldering these, I'm hoping that I'm going to get lucky. Sometimes you've got to fiddle about with this after. But so far they look like they've all run. It's just getting the timing right with the heat. So hopefully this is my last soldered connection, and after I can plug it in, get a bit more on that one, and give it a try. And we won't have any dry joints. So yeah, looking pretty good. Let's double check that one. Hopefully you can see the focus of that a bit better. So yeah, as you can see, that was the tricky part of the job, so I think we're pretty good to go. So I've got the antenna wire. I'm just run a bit of solder on this and tin this up.
Oh, and then it'll need a battery, then we're done.
That's correct, and that's just going to plug in now to the socket in there. That'll go into there, like so.
Like so, yes. Would you like me to pass the batteries?
And then all we have to do now is plug in a battery, and then we're going to see if it works. Right, so you've got your radio, and you're going to plug your antenna in. Let's have a look at it. So let's look at the finished product. Okay, maybe not. Are you going to show us the product? Turn it over. Let's look at the board, the other side, the frontage. Right, go on then, switch it on then. You don't need to pull that out.
Turn it off.
Oh, okay. It's all up. So we're lit up, so press a button.
Which one? That's loud.
Put it down on your lap. Just turn volume down.
How?
There's your volume. There's your stations, your frequencies. Press that top button.
What top button? This one?
Yep.
Huh?
Press it again. Keep pressing.
What's that?
I don't know. Let's have a look.
ये मोबाइल के किस बात की आपको पता नहीं?
So, are we happy?
Yeah.
Catch you again.